Right, so let's talk about Revenge of the Gweilo. Last time we spoke, I had obviously hadn't seen it. You told me to watch it. I watched it, and oh my god, wow! Now, first question: where the hell do you find these people?
Okay. Now, to be fair, this film took a year to cast. This was a long time. It was a long
Right.
road, and it was supposed to be uh, homage to all the Asian films that I love, a lot of the ones I
Okay.
grew up with. And for those who don't know, the very first attempt I made at making a movie, which ended up being half an hour when I was a teenager,
Right.
is called The Samurai. And Revenge of the Gweilo is kind of like the movie I wanted to make back then, but I was a
Right.
kid and I didn't know
Yeah.
anybody and I had no money and all the rest of it. So it was really a fantasy film, man. And
Oh,
it was kind of like, yeah, it was the samurai that I wanted to make when I was a teenager, and it turned out to be Revenge of the Gweilo.
well,
And
one
it
man's
took a
dream is
year
another man's
to
nightmare.
cast.
Yeah. I mean, so the cast.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Oh, that's true. But like, okay, so we'll go through how you found these people individually. Right. I mean, the one there's
Yeah,
two. Well, no, there's a lot that stand out. Well, I mean, woman that dances with a sword on
there's
airport
lots of
runway.
stuff.
She's been in a few of your films. She was actually all right in that one.
Yeah,
I
Trisha
thought
Divisha.
she was much worse in Lady Terror as the angry wife, which was ridiculous.
How are you going?
What?
But she was good in this one. But here we go with the weirdos, right? So the fat PA who starts crying.
I try my best.
Where'd you find her?
Oh yeah, Margie. Well, the funny thing about her was, as I was going through submissions for casting, that some
Yeah.
people were sending show reels and videos, and I got hers, and it was kind of extraordinary. It was this scene where, and so random, like she's playing an office suit who walks into a room and just screams at her co-workers.
Right.
And I just found it really hilarious, and it was so ridiculous. I thought this could be the person.
Nailed it.
So it was sort of, yeah, just nailed it. It was, again, it was very tongue in cheek. Obviously, we were taking the piss a little bit, and I think, yeah, it was absurd, the whole thing, and it
Yeah.
worked because it was another one of those offbeat characters. Because
Well,
let's be honest,
but
Gweilo is that, it's a melting pot of offbeat characters.
it absolutely is. That's why we're going to have to keep these answers pretty brief because I've got a number
Yep.
of people to ask about.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
the next one, the guy that says, I eat Gweilo for dinner. What the fuck is that?
I ate Gweilo for dinner.
Now that I'll actually agree with you, because when
Right.
he did that, I
Right.
didn't know it was coming. It was kind of. I watched a pod recently where Stephen Baldwin got fired because on the set of Casualties of War, because
You're
when
not allowed
Sean
to say
Penn opened
Baldwin
his
and
mouth.
fired in the same sentence.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm only
I
joking. You
watched a
can.
pod. Yeah, okay. But I saw a pod recently that reminded me of something similar, where when the other actor spoke, he had no idea that's what the delivery was going to be. So
Right.
we kind of let it happen. But you can imagine me on set, and I'm smiling, and I'm kind of a little bit horrified. But even when I approached him, I said, "Can we do it this way?" He reverted back to this delivery. No matter what I said, he kept doing it, and some people were sort of like trying not to laugh.
Yeah, I
So I
bet.
said, "You know what? I'm just going to go with it, because it's just more melting pot. Just let him go." And it was kind of funny because it did work in the end, because it was so ridiculous.
It's brilliant. If that's it. Right, next one. Mr. Gosling and that face.
Oh yeah, Gosling. That's
Like
right.
whatever he does.
Well,
It
yeah,
is
yeah.
unbelievable. And he's making it constantly. Well, who is he? Because he's
Yeah.
not got the whole language
He
barrier excuse.
It's
What's
so
the
funny because he was the only guy that was coming from a theatre background. He hadn't really done much film, and that's why he was kind of stood out a bit, and maybe not in a good way.
right? So
But I do remember
maybe he's an overactor.
I think it was there was a well, yeah, definitely an overactor, but there was
Yeah.
a couple of people on post production in editing that were like, "Who's that guy?" He just he kind of horrified a couple of people.
I bet he did.
But again, I thought more melting pot. Keep it in there, because it's getting crazy now. The gloves are off. Let's just keep going. Let's
Right.
just go overkill.
And probably the best one is the dead fiance's sister.
Do you know that day Esme was killed? You call me.
Little Tien. Yeah, Tien. I mean, Tien's a model, and
Fine. Well,
Tien's a model, and she's got that thick accent. And I don't think she even knew what was going to be asked of her. You know, some days she was on set, she looked bewildered. To be honest, I don't think she even knew what was going on. So
and right. So let's go for some classic moments. I've had a lot of questions actually, but I'm going to go through some classic moments first because probably I mean there's so many good ones here, but probably my favorite was when you were sat there on the bench. You were like, "Oh, this is bad, isn't it? My wife, my fiance is dead." So you do a video call with your dad, who's
oh
like,
yeah,
"You're right,
yeah.
pretty shit that your wife's dead."
It's a bit of a freaking tragedy, mate.
And then you're like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm really unhappy." And he's like, "You're right," and he literally laughed.
Yeah, right.
And then he just fucking turns the thing off. What? Who was that? Your real dad?
Oh God, no, God no.
No,
My
okay.
real dad couldn't act and wouldn't want to do it to save himself.
Well, that's what this guy looked like. He didn't want to do it.
It happened anyway.
At all, so
The irony of that one was Andy McPhee, who's pretty well-known actor here, and he was in kind of Sons of Anarchy, and he's got a good name. His son Cody's even more famous.
right.
And when he said yes, I was excited, but something happened with the scheduling where I think he was in LA, and I said, "Oh my God, how do I save this scene?" And so I turned it into a Skype because I knew he could do that. And he was like, "Oh yeah, if you can work that into the script, that'd be great," because he really wanted to do the film, but he was. I just lost him. The timing was really terrible, and he was off to LA. So I tried to keep it Skype, but because we didn't get that in person kind of, I guess, rehearsal.
Yeah.
The directing went haywire. So again, I was like, well, because this is also kind of crazy. Do we just keep it in? And so a comedy of errors, but somehow working in our favor is just bizarre.
No, I mean, I actually loved Revenge of the Gweilo because again, it's an easy watch.
It's easy watch and
not
it's
depressing.
crazy to watch.
I love the soundtrack, as in excellent.
Great.
So obviously we have similar tastes on that front. Love the fact that you've got that car when you applied for jobs as a butcher.
The canary yellow.
Yeah. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But so on to the last movie of yours that I watched, which is it's called Alien Love, which is available to watch on Tubi or Tubi, whatever.
And it's on Prime now as well. It's on Prime.
Yeah,
and popping up on, I think it's on Prime and Plex and a couple of others. But yeah,
I'll make sure I include any links that you send me to watch it. But I do recommend. So I've not seen The Astronaut's Wife, but apparently it's very similar to The Astronaut's Wife.
Well, again, I think because it's subgenre, it was like melting pot, amalgamating all those films. There was a bit of Astronaut's Wife, there was a bit of Starman, there was a little bit of Extro. It was influenced heavily, and again, you know, I set out to make a B-grade sci-fi film. So quite often, as you know, with the B-grade stuff, they are kind of lending, borrowing, sometimes stealing from something else. So it kind of worked. Did you enjoy it? Because you've just seen it, haven't you?
Yeah, I've just seen it. Yeah, I mean, I did. I thought it was a good story. I mean, obviously, it's got some enjoyable bad acting from some people, but it's like, for example,
are you doing an episode on it?
I can't decide. So if my viewers want me to do that, then I mean, I don't want to go over too much about Alien Love because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who does want to watch it. But let me just say, it includes you do get to see Nathan's erect penis under his clothes. So if that's something that interests my viewers, that's something there for you. But I do have to ask you one thing. Obviously, I've seen you. Well, a couple of things I'm going to ask you. Obviously, no, I'm not anyone. I've seen you do martial arts and stuff in Revenge of the Gweilo, and being normal and like Jasper. Now, you're selling yourself in this film as a NASA astronaut. Right now, those people have to be the fittest, most athletic people around, pretty much, don't they? Yet you run around in this film like a girl on sports day. Is that how you actually run, or are we supposed to think maybe he's an alien?
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. That's a funny question. Body language is very important. You'll see if you look at model behavior, look at Jasper, look at Alien Love. The body language is a little bit different. So there are things being done intentionally. But
Okay.
yeah, look, to put it bluntly,
Yeah.
it's well, it's going to be a spoiler, but let's
Yeah,
just say
don't-
it's not. Yeah.
Fine. Okay,
It's
that does
tricky.
make sense. Does make more sense then.
Shall we say it's intentional?
Yeah, if you want to do that, it sounds like it might be intentional, or you might be lying. So, like, but the thing is,
it could also be that when I made the film, maybe I wasn't in peak physical condition anyway.
Okay. Well, maybe. I mean, to be honest, it's better than I could do. I'll tell you that. So that's. So I'm not knocking it, but I'm just not trying to sell myself as a NASA trained astronaut. But no,
I think because the astronauts I was looking at though for I guess inspiration was like Apollo 13 and Ed Harris. You know, I love his character and
as in you're looking at the people that of similar age to the people that actually land on the moon now. If they were running around in Melbourne, they would run like that. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was probably more based on previous astronauts I'd seen in cinema, and a lot of the ones that I kept seeing were kind of middle-aged, Caucasian.
Yeah.
Didn't necessarily have to be that ripped.
Yeah.
I guess it's just more of a general. You know?
Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So, some other news that I've heard recently. Well, I've heard it because you told me it. The film Jasper has been made into some sort of book. Is this right? Oh, there it is. Now, what sort of idiot would watch that film and do that? Well, got something for you here, because here is that idiot now, A.B Patterson. Oh, and he's got a copy as well. So you've got one copy each. That's 2 sales. Excellent.
Let's go.
Right. So here we go. So obviously I've got a number of questions. The first one. So Andrew, you watched this movie and you went, right, that I can pad that out, because when I watched this movie, I thought I could write the whole script down on the back of like a notepad. Or the inside of a carton of Red Bull. But you watched it and thought, no, there it is. There's some real source material for me. So do you want to tell us how that happened?
Yes, I got put onto the film and loved it. It was right up my alley. I mean, I write about a drunken womanizing private investigator as my main character in my books. So Jasper was really a perfect fit by that. And watched the film, and then turning it into a novella was an interesting process, because it's very different from the normal writing process. And obviously tic-tac with Nate along the way on it, and ended up with expanding the inside of your Red Bull can to about 20,000 words. So.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that's impressive.
Well, I might jump in there and say, yeah, you're both right in a way, because I do remember like when we did the first cut of the film, and the distro was like, "Oh, you stretched this." You know, it was pretty tight. I think the problem is like, because you've got to be 70 minutes to be deemed feature. I think the script was 70 pages originally, but when you shoot, you lose about 5 minutes because of the pacing. So I had to,
Hang on.
Yeah.
There's literally 2 minutes. Literally 2 minutes of you drinking Red Bull. That is nothing to but that's true, though, isn't it?
That's a good point.
My other question about like sort of how you got around this, because obviously there's a massive hole in the script, in the movie script. So
is there?
Of course there is. So Jasper turns up at this woman's house and she goes, "Mr. Clay," and he goes, "Mm-hmm."
Mr. Clay?
Mm-hmm. Walks in, blah, blah, blah. Half an hour and a half later, the kid he's looking for is his own fucking kid. And she's, she had to clarify that it was you at the door.
Mr. Clay?
Mm-hmm. So obviously what had happened when you wrote the film was you thought, "Oh, this is a rubbish ending. Let's make up that let's make up that the kid is actually mine, forgetting the fact that you introduced yourself to the mum half an hour earlier.
Okay, now let's just remember that Jasper was a raging alcoholic and he'd vetted too many women to remember their names or who they were.
But
So by the time he gets to her...
She didn't know he was. She said,
No,
Mr. Clay.
Mr. Clay?
No, I think it's ambiguous. I think there's a possibility that she knows who he is.
Sorry, if like the dad of your child that you're not with anymore, you don't answer the door, Mr. Clay. You say, oh, thank God you're here. You probably wouldn't even need to say the person. There's no way. You've 100% done what I said the first way. Anyway.
I think she had an agenda. No, I think she had an agenda. I think she was calculative and she thought he might be the only one to get away with it and do the job. So she knew he was not all there. And so she kind of hooked him in, but then, she couldn't help herself because he was just so irresistible.
Okay, let's leave. Let's, for the sake of argument, we'll pretend that that's what happened. Right.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Andrew, how did you get around that? So in the book, because obviously, I haven't read it. But there will, by the way, be links to this book and a lot of Andrew's other stuff in the description, as will there be links to all Nathan's films, which you can check out, and I recommend you do. Sorry, so Andrew, did you touch on that plot point, or did you when in the novel when he goes round her house, does she admit that she knows who he is?
Well, yeah, she remembers who he is, but he basically, and I picking up on Nate's underlying theme to the story, and I went even harder. So you think there's a lot of sex in the film?
True.
Right.
There's even more in the novel.
True.
Like Jasper basically has shagged so many women.
Yeah.
He's not 100% sure because they start to look the same after a while, So,
well, it does seem Nathan has a type. So yeah.
What, brunette, about 55 kilograms and sexy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. It seems as yeah, absolutely.
I mean, to give you the theme, do you want me to give you the first line out of the book?
Yes, please.
Why not?
This sets the scene for it. Chapter 1. A hell of a lot of pussy. That's the upside of being a private investigator. This job has got me more pussy than a Beijing barbecue, believe me. Maybe PI should stand for Pussy Inquisitor instead.
Fucking hell. It sounds like something off the In-Betweeners.
Well, I got to say, it's pretty awesome, though.
If my audience in, then that's what will. Sorry, Nathan.
It's still going to be niche, isn't it? I think the novel is the same as the film. There's going to be fans and there's going to be the haters. It'll happen. But
the haters, people who have watched it.
What? Well, they want their money back. But it's great because the distro. I mean, for me, what happened was the distributor, the film, rang up and said, we want to put out a line of novels and graphic novels, and we found this guy in Australia who's like virtually you on the page. And I was like, wow, this is exciting. And so Andy and I met in person fairly recently, and it's gone along. I don't know. It's all been really smooth, and I just feel like he's understood the text so well and enhanced it. Obviously, as you were saying, the script wasn't long, and now it's it feels like it's got more flesh on the bone. But it's a brilliant interpretation, and I think to even get away with it in this woke day and age is quite a feat. And I love the fact that the distributors and Andrew have not really been afraid of their voice and said this is what it is. But again, it's not going to be for everybody. Let's be honest.
Well, you've always been allowed porn. Porn's allowed.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's not. I mean, we're far from there. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, God knows what happened in the director's cut.
There's no director's cut.
Yeah, it's just on your phone. It's just sort of upskirts on your phone. But by the way, there isn't. No, I'm just joking.
He's out to get us, Andy. Today, be careful. He's out to get us.
I'm always out to get everyone. But by the way, I'll point out at this stage, at any point, if you want any of this cut, just obviously say so afterwards. We need to cut the bit about the upskirts. We need to cut the bit about fun.
Well, I was
So-
going to say,
Go on.
the reason I guess also why we came to you and so did the distros, because we know you do like Jasper. You are a fan, right?
Sorry, you talking to me?
Yeah, man.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were
Absolutely.
I was just thinking of a horrible comment to make
He's
about
gonna
to say,
say
"Oh, you
no.
found the only one." No, of course, I
Yeah,
like Jasper.
yeah,
But I mean, I obviously like it for the same reasons that I like Lifetime movies. There's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a fucking knack of making these things hilarious. I mean, I don't. Some of it I think is intentional. Some of it I don't think is. I mean, but
I think you're right. I think 50% of it's intentional, but there's another 25 that just kind of happens, and that's probably coming from the collaborators as well. And I was thinking about that recently, because sometimes I'll say something or do something, and someone will laugh, and I'll go, "Was that funny?" So I think sometimes, I'll be honest, the joke is on me. But I think 50% of it is an intentional setup.
Because
So
I remember
it's a good combination.
when we last spoke, you were talking about the Lady Terror.
Yeah.
The scene where Anton dies, and saying you were at the premiere and everyone just started pissing themselves at a death scene.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
That's right.
And you were like, "Oh,
That's
now
right.
I've nailed it." But there's the problem is that sorry, not the problem is the thing about Jasper is that the acting is generally good in that one.
I appreciate it.
There's no absolute horrors like there is in fucking Gweilo.
And some of the others.
Lady Terror's got some bad acting moments, but you included. Or no,
you mean you better not be talking overall?
No. I'm talking about the moments. I'm talking specifically about the
There's
lingering
some moments, yeah.
So there's one where,
but there's also some ham moments. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, because the hero. How many have you seen all of Nathan's films, Andrew?
No. I've actually.
You're missing a trick. And by the way,
these two arrived yesterday.
Oh, he's got Terror. You legend. You got Terror. You legend.
Yeah, these two arrived yesterday.
Oh,
I haven't seen I Portrait the whole way through. I've only seen the first few, and I thought, oh, this looks sick. Because as I said, in the first few minutes of that, you obviously demonstrate like some good acting skills. But that's not why I watch your film, so I haven't seen that one.
Correct.
Lady Terror. I mean, you're going to enjoy that. I really want to hear.
Andy, I'm so glad to see you got those.
After you've watched that, please watch my video on it and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, Jay, you're right, because the two films that you didn't hack on that you thought were serious, I think, was I Portrait and Model Behavior. Because they were pretty straight.
Yeah.
Andy, you're going to love Lady Terror, though. That's mature Jasper. That's like years later, and he's actually kind of almost serious, but it's still funny.
But Jasper has a fun element to it, doesn't it? It's like it seems like it's an easy watch. Like Lady Terror's quite dark, whereas and Alien Love is like not a tough watch, but it's more of something you have to pay attention.
I love that you said that. That's actually a really good point. It's an easy watch. It's not so background that you can sort of text on your phone at the same time.
No.
But it's not. But you're not sort of having to for the millennials. But you're not having to concentrate too hard. Yeah, exactly, Jay. You're right. You're right. It's an easy watch. But also, I want to say I'm trying to keep the running times down as well, because what I've found is people are just it's like they're scrolling through their phones. They're scrolling through the platforms. That attention spans aren't as long. So I kind of feeling now like my 70, 75, 79, 80 minute running times are kind of fitting into social status now.
Yeah.
Because like I saw an indie recently, it was over 2 hours. I just found it really hard to stay in there.
Yeah.
It's too long. Like I'll watch Braveheart or Goodfellas if I want to watch a 3-hour movie, but I'm not going to watch a 3-hour indie. It's too painful.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you just wouldn't, would you?
It's too much.
Yeah. While there are some very good independent films, most of them are independent for a reason.
Exactly. They're in their own field.
Yeah.
But I did have a guy, you're going to love this one, Jay. I had a Spanish film reviewer who reviewed Lady Terror just a couple of days ago.
Right.
And it was incredible because his English wasn't even that great, but he fully understood it. And he was saying that what he loved was that there was this he loved that there was this independent realm of films. It kind of intrigues him because he's a blockbuster guy, but then he's found all these indies, and so he'll pick an actor Even one of my friends, I know he's picked one of my friends and then kind of gone down the rabbit hole and watched all these films. And so some people kind of like it because it is a side dish. It's something else.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, or you could look at that as he doesn't understand English very well. Thinks the film's all right.
I was waiting for it. He doesn't know what he's watching.
No,
that's brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It's like a blind woman doesn't have to have a good-looking boyfriend, does she? And by the way, if you are a blind woman and you're above 7 out of 10, it's info@jharangue.com. So.
Oh god!
And
Hey,
again,
there's another question. Audiobooks, because I've got a couple of my films are audiobooks. Did the distro say anything to you, Andy, about turning the novel into an audiobook? I think that must be.
Point, mate. Not at this
I think
point.
it's around the corner. I think it's in the works. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Who will be reading that audiobook? Who would you get to read it?
I think I've probably got an email somewhere that suggested that I do it, but I think when they do these, depending on time frames, I think it's automated because a few of mine are like a narrator's voice. So I'm not sure. I'd have to really investigate that because I've got 3 audiobooks out on documentaries I made, but it's kind of it's a narrator. It's not me. So I'm not too sure. It's new terrain. I'll have to check into it. Yeah.
I think it's got to be someone with a thick Australian accent. I think it does, and not like you guys, like a proper, what do you call them, bogans. I think that'd be
That's
brilliant.
Funny.
G'day, mate.
That's it. Yeah. Like what was his name? Lance from Home and Away, or Henry from Neighbours. Yeah. So I forgot. It's only us that used to watch that shit, not you. But man.
Yeah. and then we would watch EastEnders. That was the flip, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well,
we watch ours and you watch yours.
Sadly, people here watch that as well. There's a group of people here that will watch everything. Like, we used to go around friends' houses like back in the day, and like if their parents were like proper pieces of shit, you'd get their like Radio Times or TV Guide out, and everything would be circled because they're doing fuck all else. You're like, fucking hell, unbelievable.
I remember those days. Yeah, I remember that.
Andrew, tell everyone what else you've done, books wise. What other stuff have you made?
Okay, so I've done 2 novels. So my character is called Harry Kenmare, PI, private investigator.
Right.
So he's a drunk, a womanizer.
Yeah. Is this guy actually good looking though?
Well, nobody's done a film version yet. So,
hey, that's actually a really good question. How did you envision him, the guy? How do you envision Harry? How does he look? Because I remember once you said to me Russell Crowe would have been a fit.
Yeah, it's that sort of
10 years ago,
bit rugged, bit rough diamond sort of look, you know. Not your George Clooney,
not conventional
looking, but
more Gerard Butler than George Clooney.
So that's the second novel. The third one is written but not yet edited, and then there was a collection of short stories, which is
I've read that one. That one's amazing. That resonated with me. When I read that, I felt like I was reading, an episode of Jasper. It was just so uncanny.
And also I can see why the guys in America thought it was going to be a great fit.
Oh yeah, and it's quite unbelievable when you think of it like that, because also like my background is so different to yours, yet your writing style and my filmmaking style is so similar. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and I think possibly, I think more than possibly, I think probably that's because, our storytelling comes from our lens on the world. And despite very different background experiences, I think there's a lot of overlap between our lenses on the world. So I think, in terms, coming back, Jay, to your question, I mean, obviously the stuff I write, it is fiction, but a lot of it's based on, I used to be a detective.
All right.
So a long time ago, but a lot of it's based on things I've investigated. And so, I like to write hardcore crime fiction because apart from being, I think good story, and I like reading a lot of that stuff. It's also about telling stories about this is actually what goes on out there, rather than a lot of crime fiction these days, which is so tame and so vanilla. Really, it's, it should be labelled as a sleeping pill rather than anything else.
So that's opened another question up. So back in your days as a detective, it's like this, right? So you go out for the morning, out in the morning, go out for coffee. The waitress tries to suck you off, and then like you get in your car, and like a parking attendant comes along, gives you a hand job. Then like lunch at a hotel, and then you end up having sex with the maid in the room. Is this what happens, or is this just what we're led to believe in certain films?
Of course, every day, mate.
What I'm asking you is, how many have you ever done in a day? And is this a real thing? Like, I mean, have you done the trifecta, 3 women, no shower, or is that not a thing?
Is any of it based on reality? Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, look, there's bits and pieces in there. I mean, those sort of stereotypes, I mean, they don't come out of nothing,
No.
Yeah, true.
And when I started as a detective right back at the beginning of the 90s, the old school detective sergeants, I mean, there were some of them, you'd get into the car with them at 8 o'clock in the morning and say, right, son, let's go down to the early opener,
Yeah.
and they were into the piss at 8 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
That was the real old school. I mean, they were dying off, obviously. We did enjoy a drink, but most of us left it until the end of the day, not at the start of the day. But look, there's a lot of colourful stuff that goes on out there, and you heard a lot of stories around the traps. There were areas of the police which were rather less clean than others. But and I spent my last year and a half as a detective in the Vice Squad, so hence a lot of the inspiration for some of the characters and the ladies and stuff that I write about.
Right.
I sort of spent all that time working with the sex industry, which is a real eye opener, and it's a really broad spectrum. That one, it's not.
Is that how you two met?
No, I was actually
casting couch.
I was actually moonlighting as a counselor at the brothel when he wouldn't pay his bill. So,
That's brilliant.
So there's some CCTV somewhere there of me bouncing Nate down the pavement,
Yeah, down the stairs from the top to the bottom.
We've come full circle.
Yeah.
Love it.
Very good.
No, look, I think
But,
go on, mate.
I was just going to say, do you think the novel is a slightly tamer version of reality, or do you think it's an amalgamation of all the spike moments? Where would it sit in that spectrum of real life and fiction?
You're talking about the Harry?
Yeah,
novels?
Harry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, it is a mixture. There's lots of episodes in there which are very closely or semi-closely based on actual episodes. Obviously, the names have changed.
Yeah, that's right.
But there are other bits in there which are complete, creations. But it's about getting that balance between because at the end of the day, anything you write, it's the same for you as a filmmaker and a screenwriter. You've got to tell a story that entertains. Otherwise, people don't want to freaking read it. So there's no point somebody picking up the first couple of chapters and then putting down, I don't want to read that shit. Now, look, there's a brigade out there who hate me, and because of what I write. Well, that's fine. I'll live with that one, mate.
Because it's dirty or because it's rubbish? Generally, I'm asking, I don't know. There's a brigade out there that hate me, like avid readers, critics. As I said, I've not read any of your stuff, so I don't know. I'm sure
that's right. But on a slightly serious note, Jay, I mean, there is a whole brigade out there of what we call the New Puritans who are trying to drag everything back into this. Let's all wear a hessian sack and not fucking look at members of the opposite sex.
Right.
Now there are some members of the opposite sex who belong in hessian sacks, but but
baggers.
Yeah, the 4 a.m. at the nightclub job, Yeah. Last orders. But
I knew we'd get along. I knew it. I knew the
here
three.
They were called
it's the same dialogue.
10 to 2.
A 10 to 2. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because the club shut at 2 o'clock, so it's like, fuck, I've got 10 minutes left. That'll do.
That's right. We're on the same page.
Yeah. Okay.
But so look, I mean, you want to tell. It's got to be an entertaining story, but also to have those bits of realism in there. So your story has those bits where you think actually, that feels real, as I said, I mean, a lot of the crime, and I don't read a lot of the mainstream crime fiction anymore because it is really just so formulaic and so vanilla. And you think, really? The story's got to grab you. But plus, I think you want characters that grab you. I mean, I love the flawed hero. I mean, there are people out there who hate my Harry Kenmare. But he's got his heroic side and he's got his flaws, absolutely. But that makes, I think, for a far more interesting, main protagonist in a story. And it's exactly the same with Jasper. That's one of the reasons I got on so well with that storyline as soon as I read the film and read the script and spoken the night. I mean, again, flawed, absolutely, but underlying, there's a decent human being, and I think that's something that appeals across, the board in terms of what people want to read. It goes back. I mean, we all love the story of the hero. That goes back to the very beginning of storytelling. And I think the flawed hero, I think, appeals to a lot of people because, I mean, most people realize that life is not all peaches and cream. And it's not all black and white. So,
what's the best example of a most famous example of a flawed hero in a movie? I was just trying to think of one.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah,
go for it.
Well, the character that comes to mind straight away for me is Fight Club with the Edward Norton character, because he's massively flawed,
right?
And in real life probably really unlikable, yet on screen he's very likable, and you want to know where he's going because you feel sorry for him and you have empathy for his flaws that you can relate to, even though he's explosive. It's very clever storytelling. I mean, David Fincher's obviously a master director, but I would say he's definitely an anti-hero. And having Brad Pitt as his split personality, which is the side of him he wishes he could be. So it's
that's ruined it.
The one that
that's
springs to
you've
mind
ruined
for
it.
me.
You've spoilt it for people who are watching. Don't bother watching Fight Club. He's already ruined it.
Don't go and see Fight Club now. I just gave it to you in 10 seconds.
By the way, if you're planning to watch Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis is dead.
That's awesome. But I think the other thing too with these flawed characters, they work well with the indie stuff because you don't need a lot of money to show a flaw. Obviously, we're so used to now the green screen studio films. Your Marvel, DC. They wear a cape, and it jumps straight off the comic book page. So it's hard to have flaws unless it's psychological. But in a weird way, that becomes harder because they look perfect, but you have to takes a long time to figure out the flaw. Whereas with the indie film, you can see the flaw straight up and go, and identify with it. And somehow, to me, it just feels a little bit more believable. If that makes sense.
If anyone's still watching, then in the comments below, tell me your best example of a flawed hero, please. Thank you very much.
Good idea.
So if by some
miracle,
I'll start again. So, on the off chance that this Jasper novel takes off, could it be a series of novels, or could it even be? I was about to say made into a film, like a real one. You know what I'm talking about. But
a real one, yeah, right. A budget, yeah. I like budget. Thank you.
Genuinely, seriously, is there a possibility of more Jasper novels?
Well, I heard that if this one did well, that there might be a trilogy. That's the rumor I heard.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard anything specific, but I mean, when they first approached me about this, it was very much the flavour that this was a bigger project than just one. So,
yeah,
ooh.
Which is exciting.
Ooh,
yeah. It's exciting.
Jasper 2, right? Come on, think of a possible tagline for Jasper 2.
Oh well, I've already got it for you. I think we may have covered this before, but it was I don't know that it's gonna be Andrew's sequel though. My fictional film sequel was The Poppy Syndrome, which was Jasper 2.
Yeah,
there's a premise and a treatment there, but it'll be over to the big man for that because it'll be a novel, but before there's a second screenplay.
Right,
Jasper Unplugged.
Unplugged. That's awesome.
I'm going for Jasper 2 Redder Bull.
Redder Bull.
Right. But when we talk about tall poppy syndrome, is Nathan, you all right to discuss this?
Oh, for sure, 100%.
Your haters.
Andrew knows all about it as well. I think
Right.
we talked a bit about this at dinner. Yeah.
So, audience, Nathan has a group of haters, and these aren't just people.
Which
who have
means
watched
I've
the
made
film.
it, right?
Well, apparently,
That means I've made it.
Or you
apparently.
could just be a cunt that people don't like, and they're
just be
trying to
an
ruin your life. But like, you don't know. But so I'm interested because obviously I understand your stuff is getting review bombed on IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and do you know what disappoints me is that when you told me that this is going on, I was looking forward to reading some of these like reviews and just hear these people who don't like you slating it, but none of them do it. They're just pressing the numbers. Come on, if you're watching and you hate Nathan. And you go in and write something funny that people can laugh at, because this is just boring. But no, seriously. So how did this start? What are they doing? And how can our audience combat this?
So hang on. How can we combat the haters? Is that where we're going?
That's what I mean. Is that, so? For example, if someone's review bombing your stuff, then it has to be review brigaded.
Yeah, right.
So I don't agree with review bombing. So I don't do stuff like that because I don't really like. But if people are already doing it from one side, it needs to be done from the other. Do you see what I'm coming?
Yeah. There was a friend of yours. I don't know if it was Greg, but there was someone in the UK that was a big fan, and he was talking about something like the Hill Army that he wanted to build, which hasn't gone down yet. But apparently there's a fan base there. So maybe we need to get the boys into one side of the ring and amplify it. Even up the odds.
I think there's 4 or 5 of my viewers that would definitely be up for that.
4 or 5.
No. Well, I mean, bear in mind that how many if you've got like 3,000 subs, like 1,000 will watch the videos, 100 will leave comments, and like a certain people, do you know what I mean? It's like that.
That's right.
But I can name now 4 or 5 people who would definitely be keen on starting some online army of counter trolls.
And your guys are great. And I tell you what, though, you're lucky because your channel, the guys that are in there, they understand it and they leave really good comments. And even if they don't like something, they're still tasteful. You know, they're a really good audience. So you're very lucky to have that, Jay, because they understand you. I understand you. I'm sure Andy is, and it's refreshing because I feel like the humor and the style of this film and novel, it's now becoming so niche because times are changing so much. But I love that you said before that at the core, there's a nice guy. There's a real there's a good human being, and that's exactly right. I think I kind of liken it, Jay. You're going to laugh, but I kind of liken it to Saint Anthony in the desert. Do you know when he walks the 40 days, 40 nights? He's got
I'm beyond
all these
that laughter
demons
beyond
attacking
me at this
him.
point. That is just loose.
Right?
Yeah. Go on.
And he's kind of attacked, and he has to keep walking the path. You know, it's a classic hero's journey, and even against all the odds, he still gets there.
Yeah.
I think for Jasper doing 40 days in the desert, there'd need to be regular brothel stops along the way.
You've stolen my joke. I was about to say getting wanked off every 10 minutes, but you've.
There you go. Yeah. But you know what? That could be a Jasper concept. 40 days, 40 nights. There's a lot you can do with that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it might be 40 days, 40 whores. You know, I mean, it could be anything, right?
That's it. Yeah. 40 days, 400 cans of Red Bull. I'm trying. What was it? I'm trying to think what the other things. Because I mean, the Red Bull for me just completely took over like the viewing of Jasper because it was just like I was just waiting. So I rewatched
so obvious,
and it's just it just hits you in the face, doesn't it? And obviously some of the strange interactions with women. Then you had the guy when you were in the hotel room with that woman and her boyfriend. I don't know why he was about to let himself into a hotel room. I don't know why. Like it's like, oh no, it's like if you're having sex with a guest at the hotel, you know, you don't. You're pretty much the one thing you know that is not going to happen is that another member of staff is going to just walk into the room while he's in there.
No, No, I can explain that because
Okay.
that was Danvers, and that was Danvers brothel. You've got to look pretty close, but you
okay.
will pick up on it. It is in there. It is in there. And so what's happened is that their time's up because he's paid for,
No,
is it
sorry,
30
hang on.
minutes?
This was earlier when, funnily enough,
earlier?
when the girl comes into your room in the hotel and brings
You're
you
talking
the
about
plate
cuddles.
of the plate of
Oh,
Red
we're
Bull.
talking cuddles at the
You're
motel.
talking
Yeah,
cuddles.
that's
Oh,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
Ralph. Yeah,
And Ralph,
okay.
by
So
the way,
she's
Ralph
kind of
doesn't even work there, so why would he be letting himself into it? She'd be pretty safe in a customer's room, wouldn't she?
I think because he's one of the goons, he's one of Danvers' henchmen, and
Yeah.
it was the character was trying to be portrayed as this complete, obsessive, kind of, what's the word for it when you've got that obsessive partner?
Like a jealous
I'm
obsessive.
going blank. Yeah, the
Um,
jealous type.
Controlling, yeah.
And so he was kind of controlling.
Right.
That's right. So he was sort of, I think he was controlling her, and because he was a henchman, it was just kind of reiterating that he was one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
And it was also a chance for Jasper to prove himself for the audience.
Prove he's a hard man.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's probably the one of your films where you're not like some sort of super hard, massive hard man, isn't it? Like it's the only one where you lose a fight.
Yeah. Exactly. That was the whole thing. Losing to the female well, I can't say henchman, can I? Let's say bodyguard.
Hench person. Yeah.
Hench person. That's right.
Yeah.
Was also very much part of the comedy.
Yeah.
And do you remember, because he had the stomach, and he couldn't move that much.
Yeah.
And so, and I think I told you there was a joke where someone at the screening said, "Oh, he spent the whole movie lying down," and he pretty much does, because he's either lying in bed or he's knocked out lying on the ground. So that became a bit of a motif. So I did. If you look closely, he's either sitting or lying down. It was like one of those movies where I didn't have to walk much, but it was all intentional. That was
bit of a Steven Seagal there. The other thing I was going to point out in Jasper is that the female fighting, that scene in the warehouse / gym, whatever it is, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like,
thanks, man. Yeah, I like
completely the flip side to the female fighters in Revenge of the Gweilo.
Oh, you thought so? Interesting. Well, let me think, because Sarah Howard, she's professional kickboxer. She was in Gladiators, the TV show. She's legit.
This is one of the
so
people
that's
in
probably why that fight was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Gweilo, you're right. I think it's really hard getting some of the female actors to be convincing if they haven't fought, for real. It's really tricky. Like, I won't say a name, but there's a filmmaker here locally who has a girl fight in every one of his films, and every time I see it coming, I go, "Oh no, not again," because it's just, it's slap. It just looks so woeful, and I don't think he knows it. They think it's good, and every time I see it, I just go, "No, not again." There's not even any proper choreography. It's woeful. So
if only there was a way to get a man to pretend to be a woman and have a fight with a woman.
So, Andy, can you tell us as well, like, what was your process with screenplay adaptation to novel, and how did you find that process?
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, it was fascinating because it's doing a novella or novelization. This is obviously the first one I've done. It's a very different writing process because obviously, when I pick up and do one of my own things, it's all coming out of here. So whereas you pick up, picked up, your film and your screenplay, and obviously that's your story. And then it's a matter of them bringing that to life on the page. And I suppose there's a few things that go with that. One is that I think it's important, if you're doing novelization, obviously to respect that the story does belong to somebody else, and to stay true to the essence of that story. Obviously, there are things in the novelization which are slightly different. Some of the sex scenes go a bit further. All right, a lot further. Okay.
I love it.
You're getting him annoyed now. He's annoyed because he didn't He didn't push the envelope on the sex scenes. Or
Yeah,
maybe he did, but they just refused.
Yeah, I can get away with a bit more on paper than you can with on screen, of course. That's the difference.
That's true.
But I think to me, it was really important, obviously, to keep the story in line. And that's why, obviously, we checked in together regularly as I was going through it. Because I wanted to make sure that you were happy with the way it was progressing in terms of the storyline.
No, and I really appreciate that.
So, no, even quite a bit of the dialogue from the film I kept verbatim in the novel.
That's true.
The biggest challenge was, and look, so you can have also fun when you're putting it on page. You can go into all sorts of description. And I described, how did I describe I'll just find the bit because we talked about the scene with Cuddles before and the greasy boyfriend. I described him as where are we?
And it's nice too, Jay, because they've actually thrown in a few stills from the movie.
Yeah, they have.
The
Yeah,
novel,
absolutely.
Have they?
which is great. Yeah,
Are you in them?
I'm in there. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So it's quite nice.
That's
Gives you an
ruin the
idea.
fantasy for new readers.
So here's the description of Ralph and the novel's written in first person, so it's written from Jasper's perspective. But as soon as I saw the film and read the screenplay, I thought this has to be first person narration, which brings some other challenges we'll come back to. But here's the description. I sneered at Ralph, getting close to his ugly face, which resembled a Mediterranean bulldog that had been hit in the mouth with a baseball bat. Again, what the fuck did Cuddles see in this piece of shit? So, you can have a lot of fun with the written word around a lot of that sort of stuff. I mean, yes, a lot of that. I mean, some of that's implied in the film clearly, but I think the challenges around, apart from wanting to stay as true to the story as possible, although taking a little bit of license with it, is it was point of view is the biggest. So you got to choose your narrator's point of view. So it was first person. As soon as I read it, I saw it, and I thought this is the first person. It has to be Jasper telling the story. So that's why I went, which reflects what I do with my Harry character in the short stories. Although with the novels, I go third person because that enables me to then come back to other people's point of view at certain points, which I think is important.
That's cool.
But the other issue is the actual visual point of view, because obviously in a film, as the viewer, you're seeing whatever is on screen. So, whereas, of course, in a novel, it has to be, the point of view has to be consistent. So if you're telling the story from the first person, so it's Jasper's story, so there are scenes in the film where Jasper's not in them. Then if you're going to then tell the story on paper from the first person, somehow they're going to remassage that. So, for instance, there's that scene later on in the film at Danvers' house when Jasper's been taken back there by the skanky little daughter. And in the novel, he gets further than he, but he
doesn't just get a massage.
You've got Danvers sitting with his goons in that sort of that room with the pole and the stripper and everything, and obviously Jasper's not in that scene. And then the daughter comes in, and that's an important scene in terms of how the story is then progressing, and then the sort of the chase that goes from there with Jasper. But of course, when you're writing it from Jasper's point of view, somehow Jasper has to be able to see all that. And so then you've got to come up with these tricks around how to do that. So then that's why Jasper creeping down the hallway is into this side room, which has actually got a little window into the bigger room, and he can actually see what's going on and hear what's going on. He's got to describe that. So those were some of the challenges with looking at purely from a film point of view, because obviously there are bits in the film you think, hang on, Jasper's not actually there to say that. Or to see
how do we connect the dots? It's interesting you mentioned that too, because I think even the film may have benefited from a narration to know what's going on in his head. It might have actually amplified the movie as well, because a lot of those detective films, they do start out like that, and you'll hear the guy, it was winter, it was Monday, she was hot, I was cold, whatever, it's interesting.
Yeah. Just with Jasper, because you get pussy in the first sentence, that's it sets the scene, and it sets the tone for the rest of it. I think I am a big believer. The opening lines, they've got to grab you. They've got to kick you.
It's the same with the screenplay, because it's got to get you in the first 10 pages,
right?
And the first 10 minutes of the movie, you've got to actually introduce every lead character in the first, like in screenplay format. In the first 10, and anything that any seeds you've planted, essentially, you've got to come up with the goods in Act 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a similar thing. You have to grab them in those. Like, you see a lot of the B action movies, they open with, an explosion. They open with that action sequence. Like, you'll see it in all the Van Damme films.
All
It opens
Lifetime movies as
with
well.
the
They've
fight.
got the scene of a big
No.
chase and a death, and then
Yeah.
3 months earlier, it's a nice family
And then it
celebrate.
backs off.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, again, like you said, you're grabbing the audience as quickly as you can, and hoping that they'll actually stay in. So it's and Hollywood, you know what they do? It's fire and ice. Do you know? Like, I've seen this. It's elemental. You'll see fire, and then you'll see water. Look out for it. The next time you're sort of watching a Hollywood film, you'll be amazed at how much fire and ice is involved in these intro action sequences, because it's a senses thing, and it drags the human being into it. So you have a look next time, you'll see it. It's a bit elemental.
Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So the
that's
process...
what I noticed in Hollywood, because most of the... Sorry to cut you off. In Hollywood, but even what I noticed with a lot of the theme parks, Universal Studios, for example, it's a lot of fire and water. So you have the explosion, then the water will put it out. And again, it's elemental. It's just, it's amazing how much, if you look for it's how much of it'll come up. Like, even with Waterworld, the film, it's set on the water, but everything on top of the water is exploding. So it's sort of, you'll see it everywhere if you look for it.
Okay. And why do they do that?
I think, again, it's just, it's the force of nature.
Right.
And I think even just fire as an element, it's still, there's something kind of, magical about it. How does it, like, I guess when you were, primitive times, fire is a big thing. It's a life source, but I'm sure that kids, when they make the first flame, it's kind of, it's special. It's kind of, electric. It's kind of magical in a sense.
I spent a bit of time as a detective in the arson squad, so yeah. They are strange people.
Oh, right. Yeah. You would have seen some things, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that is interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just elements, and it's also what the planet's limited to. So they try. As part of the framework of the blockbuster films, for example, there's so many explosions. It's loud. It's fiery. It's chaos. Again, it's just trying to catch that audience's attention. I don't like it though when the blockbusters just sort of ram down your throat so much action to the point where it's too much and it's not believable. And now all I'm seeing is an explosion and a couple of one-liners, and there's not even a screenplay there. That I can't stand.
Yeah, that's irritating.
It's overkill.
That's gone on for ages, and it's really irritating.
So
I don't even like action films anymore because it's too much. I'm not interested.
It's too much, exactly. Yeah. It's the same with the martial arts as well. It's sad that they've gone down the stunt wire path to the point where characters are now just flying. They're barely even having a stand-up fight. That's why I love Bruce Lee so much, because it was all about the stand-up fight, and it was a punch that had to connect or a kick that had to connect, and you'd see the drama in the face. It was more intense, and I understand, the kung fu style, and sometimes it looks amazing. When they get it right, it looks amazing, but it's also a bit overkill. They're trying. Yeah. It's almost like they're trying too hard. It's like, let's get back to what the fight was about.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be visually the moves. 50 moves in a minute. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like, what's the film about? Why are they fighting? Bring it back to the drama. I want to see the hate in these characters' eyes. I go back to Lone Wolf McQuade when Chuck Norris takes on David Carradine. It's because the build-up was huge. It's 80 minutes of build-up and then a 10-minute fight. That, to me, is much more entertaining. And I think, as you would agree, Jasper's exactly the same in a premise.
Yeah,
it's a build-up. It's a slow burn.
And I think I like a good action film, but there has to still be a story.
Yeah, that's
right. You've got to have that narrative progression as we go through, because that's the journey you're taking, viewer or your reader on. So it's otherwise, you're just going to have pure action scenes, and so what? I mean, how does that all hang together?
I was recently recommended a film to watch from your homeland, actually, from the late 80s. I think there's two of them. They're called Strike of the Panther or Revenge of the Panther. Do you know about these?
I know them. I can't
Oh my
remember watching them
God.
though. It would have been a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't bother. It's absolutely awful. Absolutely awful.
Are you doing them on your channel? Are you going to do one on the channel?
I don't. They're quite bad. You can't really get good versions. That's the problem. So you can't get high quality versions.
Yep.
Right. Well, thank you, Nathan and Andrew, for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed it. You will find Andrew's links to all of Andrew's stuff in the description below, as well as links to my videos of Nathan's films, as well as where you can see them or support him. So thank you very much, everyone. And I will see you shortly.
Thanks so
Ciao.
much, Jay. Thanks,
Thank you
Andrew.
very
Good
much.
to see you
Cheers.
guys again.